Welcome to APSA Grand Tour 2021. I'm Susie Raymond and I'm the Media Director for APSA. I'd like to welcome all the participants and all the panelists, and I'd like to welcome our participants who are crossing time zones. There are participants in the UK, hopefully they're having their morning coffee, Dubai, who they've just finished lunch, in Asia, we're just finishing our work day, and in Australia, well, maybe it's wine time, and in New Zealand, maybe some more wine time because it's 10 o'clock there. Just some housekeeping. This webinar goes for an hour and 15 minutes, and we'll be having a question and answer session at the end. You can use your chat box and you can use the question and answer box to put in questions. Now I'd like to introduce our panelists, which are Mark Whiteman from New Zealand, Trenton Gay in Australia, and Angela Pennyfather, who's in Papua New Guinea. Well, she's actually in Australia, but she's also based in Papua New Guinea. We've also got our chairman, Nigel Beattie, of APSA, and he's going to do an introduction and we've got David Good from AMX and Superyacht Australia, and he'll be giving an overview. So what we're going to do is start with Nigel. Nigel, can you give us an overview of APSA, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Susie, and also I want to welcome everybody to the Grand Tour. My name's Nigel Beattie. As Susie said, I'm the chairman of APSA. And I too especially welcome our esteemed members that have joined us, and I also welcome industry friends and colleagues and visitors from around the world to be with us for this webinar. APSA is the Asia-Pacific Superyacht Association, and we were set up with a primary aim as a regional association to promote our members to the fullest and try and make them as successful as possible. And we do this by showcasing the region as a whole, showcasing our members, and over all forms of media and at events and superyacht shows around the world. This is also APSA's 10th anniversary, and in the last 10 years, we've seen a huge upswing in the business of yachting in Asia. This is fueled by many yachts visiting from the West and also a large swell of domestic demand, which is increasing every year. Due to us being unable to have a big birthday party, we decided to hold this webinar to highlight the Asia-Pacific region and let people from around the world understand the cruising circuit over here. We have chosen to make this a fairly simple webinar with a concept of a super yacht. We're going to call her Motor Yacht APSA, voyaging the Asia-Pacific cruising circuit. And we're going to cover 9 countries over 3 webinar episodes. From her start cruising in New Zealand, Motor Yacht APSA will voyage over to Australia and then up to Papua New Guinea for today's episode 1. Then next week, episode 2, sees our super yacht cruise on up to Japan and then to Taiwan and finally to Hong Kong. And in 2 weeks, episode 3 will be in Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia, completing one of the many circuits of the Asia-Pacific cruising area. As you'll see through this webinar series, the region has a massive amount to offer, year-round cruising circuit, which is already in operation by many yachts. Of course, these 9 countries only offer a small amount of the cruising in this region. So in the future, you're going to add more episodes to the APSA Grand Tour, including maybe a South Pacific swing and perhaps an Indian Ocean adventure for you guys. Onwards, we also have plans to build on the APSA webinar concept with episodes featuring super yacht brokerage, repair and refit, charter, and lots more, all focused squarely on the Asia-Pacific region. But anyway, for now, please enjoy a tour around our fabulous cruising area. Happy birthday, APSA, and back to you, Susie.
David, I'd like to introduce you now. David is CEO of Superyacht Australia and AMX, and he will be presenting an overview of Australia, charter and cruising.
Thanks, Susie. Well, I mean, the big news here in Australia is after 10 years of battling with government is we finally achieved charter. So that happened in December 2019. And probably the biggest weapon we had in our arsenal was the fact that we could point to other countries in our region and say that they were already doing charter. It's amazing the influence that we had with politicians when we could say that Fiji, New Zealand, and Tahiti all had similar rules that we were trying for, and we were left behind. And I would help any country in the region learn from our mistakes, learn what worked for us, because the more countries in our region that offer charter, the more attractive we are as a region for vessels to relocate to this area, whether it's for a couple of seasons or permanently basing a yacht in this region. The more that we have to offer in the region, the better we can perform and compete on the world stage. So at the moment, the three main areas that vessels would come to Australia would be the Kimberleys in the northwest of Australia, there right underneath Indonesia, the Great Barrier Reef, and Sydney. So the Kimberley region was put on the map quite a few years ago, where the vessel that's in that picture there, Motor Yacht Glaze, it won the Voyage of the Year award on the international awards, and there was a number of high-profile vessels that followed. Vessels such as Vava 2 and Octopus came to this region. And this region, as you see from that picture there is really only one way to see it, and that is by vessel. So, and it's in the middle of nowhere. So you get that isolation, that beauty similar to that shot. That's a popular cruising region for vessels to come to. It's a lot closer linked to Indonesian than they are to the east coast of Australia. The second region is the world's largest living creature, which is the Great Barrier Reef. It's anyone who's into diving or into fishing has it as one of their bucket list items to do. The area is massive. It's 3,500 kilometres, square kilometres worth of reefs, and there's a number of vessels. It's probably 70% of the vessels that visit Australia will visit the Great Barrier Reef. And the third region is Sydney. So New Year's Eve on Sydney Harbour, most of the world gets to see the fireworks when they wake up on New Year's Eve, because New Zealand and ourselves have probably already celebrated New Year's. And in the middle of summer, it's a location that a lot of vessels love to come and park themselves and enjoy. So the way we go about visiting, increasing our visitation in Australia, we do it collaboratively. So the next slide here, Nick. We have three phases to how we want to increase our visitation in Australia. The first is we need to reach the vessels. We do so by going over to the Monaco show and to Fort Lauderdale, and we prefer to market ourselves as a region. So the APSA welcome party that we have at Monaco is definitely the best event that I've been to at the Monaco show. And when we go there and we show what the South Pacific has to offer, the human culture, the isolation, the paradise is our point of difference, and it's a far more successful way to get visitation to Australia. We know that a vessel's not going to come all the way to Australia from the other part of the world and not visit all that's on offer in the region. So we find that it's a lot more successful if we advertise as a region and we promote the other countries within the region. Once they're in the region, our next stage of promoting Australia is to run activities in the region. So in June, we run an activity in Tahiti, in August in Fiji, and in Thailand in January. And what we're doing here is we're helping those locations throw a big party for the crew and the captains, and we're advertising what we have in Australia, and we're pushing mainly our refit capabilities. Vessels, when they come to this region, if they need any work done, between New Zealand and ourselves, we've pretty much got the boats covered, and we can increase the length of stay in the region by making sure that they don't have to go back to the other part of the world to get that work done. And then lastly, the third stage is we make sure that we deliver once the vessels are in Australia. So, as I said, refit maintenance is a strength of ours, and by making sure that vessels can do their 5-10 year surveys, any maintenance that they need to be done, they can spend an extra year or two in the region without having to worry about going back to the Americas or the Med. We offer premium marina infrastructure whilst they're here, and one of the things that we need to do is we need to get the vessels to travel wider. Those locations such as the Kimberleys, the Great Barrier Reef and Sydney are outstanding, but there's a lot more on offer. So we encourage that vessels also visit places such as Tasmania, brilliant cruising ground, Torres Straits, which offers the Polynesian islander type of culture, and it's located just between Australia and Papua New Guinea. The rest of Western Australia, and Trent will show you some fantastic shots soon of other locations in Western Australia, such as Ningaloo Reef, where you can go diving and snorkeling with whale sharks. The refit and maintenance that we have on offer, the major hubs are in Western Australia, in Perth, the Cairns area in the Great Barrier Reef, southeast Queensland, where we've got Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and Sydney. So if we can add value to the region by saying that between ourselves and New Zealand, you will not need to go back to the other part of the world to get your refit and maintenance done, and there's plenty of good cruising grounds which Trent will be able to go through when he has his time on camera. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you very much, David. I mean, what I didn't say earlier about you is that you have a lot of experience having worked in Cairns Port and with APSA and the Superyacht Australia. So if anyone's got any questions or any comments for David, please put them up online. Thank you. Next is our panelist from New Zealand, Mark Whiteman. Mark is a long-term professional in the industry and started in the Royal Navy and Merchant Navy, moved onshore in 2004 and set up Integrated Marine Group. Mark is well known in the industry, and we look forward to hearing all about New Zealand as a destination and as a refit centre as well. Thank you. Over to you, Mark.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Well, it's evening here. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'll quickly to talk to a few things. It's really region-wide. The general region of Australia, Papua New Guinea and New Zealand. The first thing, we're going to show you some really good slides tonight, and everyone's going to say, wow, but the real customer experience that comes with the yachts that have visited here, the crew, is they talk about the people, their experiences with the people, the way we are. I think we're casual but professional in our part of the world. We get the job done, but we also know how to pick our heels up, and yachts like that, owners like that, and it works very well. So I think as we go through, I'll talk to a few of those experiences, but that's the key to it. My experiences both in refit and the yacht support side agency. I've been in the yacht industry a little bit longer than Susie said. I've done the previous two America's Cups here, where we had a 50-metre vessel turning up. Everyone turned heads. Now that when they sail up the harbour, hardly anyone notices them. So, such as our industry's changed. So if I get Nick to move to my next slide, it shows our perspective to the rest of the world. So that's New Zealand implanted in Europe. And while they think we're a small country at the bottom of the world, we're going all the way from Denmark down to Marseille. And when you put that in perspective, we've got a big area to cover, and that's why we need to work collaboratively with our neighbouring relations, our Australia and all the Pacific Islands, New Guinea, up through Asia. So then you put New Zealand into Australia and suddenly we're just a blip, absolute blip. And that really puts in perspective just how vast Australia is in our wider territory. I mean, we're still 2 time zones east of us to French Polynesia, and we cover a very big part of the planet. We'll get you to move on there, Nick, to the next slide. So New Zealand, I'll quickly brief on that. It's more to show you the topographical, very mountainous in the southern South Island and the southern North Island. The rest is a bit less alpine in the north, but the main cruising regions to the very northeast at the top corner of the map. So we'll move on, if we could, to the next slide. And I'll start talking about the regions starting at the top. So the North Island, that's a quick shot of Auckland. The harbour entrance where yachts had come in from offshore. The yachts in the foreground is one of the key race areas for America's Cup. So things are happening fairly close to the action. It's just a pity we couldn't share it with a few more people, but we'll work on that. We'll just start stepping through those slides if we could. Next, we'll move to the Bay of Islands. Can you hear me, Nick?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the North Island. So just quick, just step back one there. Sorry to hold you up. So you see the top from Auckland north, with the Coromandel to the west, and the Bay of Islands north to the cruising regions and down into the Bay of Plenty. That's the principal area that probably 75% of the yachts that come to New Zealand will focus on. The other areas that I'll cover are a little bit less subscribed to, but they, for me, they're the jewels in our crown. But it's something that's waiting to be unleashed. Now we move on to the Bay of Islands. I'll quickly just talk through it. So that's just an island in the Bay of Islands. Many have heard of that. Plenty of anchorages, plenty of safety. The big thing with New Zealand tourism and the rest of our region is that it's not only the yachting side, it's also the onshore experiences. I mean, there's just about unimaginable limits to what you can do. I mean, you got dune bike riding there, and the dune's probably less than an hour's ride from any jetty in the north. We'll keep moving on. If we could just keep slowly rolling through the slides here, Nick. So you can play golf. That's in the very same region, the Maori cultural side of it in Waitangi in the Bay of Islands. It's all there. There's the flora and fauna, so a very familiar little creature there, and one of the biggest trees on the planet. Some of those are measuring 8 meters in diameter. So this is Whangaroa, slightly north of the Bay of Islands. It's in the feedback from the yachts. It's probably one of the favourites because you can anchor in very deep water, in nice and close and sheltered. And then there's an entrance that's showing a vessel going out through the entrance, and just around the corner there's a reasonable surf break and plenty of other activities. There's no end of experiences. There's game fishing out beyond the islands in the distance, and as you can see, and this is moving a little bit further south, you have the Poor Knights, which is you've got to get special permits to go in there, but some really spectacular diving and cave diving where you can go take the boat right inside a cave with the right size vessel, and that's world-renowned dive site. So we'll just keep rolling on. I'm conscious that my time's limited. So down in Auckland at the moment, we've got a bit going on, a few yachts, and I've got to say, when you see those things up close, I mean, you can watch them on the big screen, but when you get up close to one at full speed, it's an impressive sight. They hum like anything, and it's a marvel and a testament to all the boat building nations that are getting in behind that technology. It's really impressive. And then we'll just keep rolling on a bit. So that's a picture at the bottom there. That's the marina at the moment. And as is that's a view looking towards the Silo Marina and Orams Marine in the background, taken this morning. So that's what it looks like at the moment. As I just happened to catch at the same time a boat going in the water with a camera at the ready, taking as many photos as they like, so that the spies were out right from the start. So we've got plenty of action, but as you can see, the marinas are a bit light. So as I mentioned before about the onshore tourism, and here's some of the bits and pieces you can do as you move down the island around Rotorua and Taupo. For people on yachts, particularly if you had a helicopter or, had hired access to a helicopter, you can do some amazing things and be back on board comfortably in the afternoon, eating the fish you've caught during the day, as well as, whether it's be a trout or a marlin. There's the Hobbiton, the Hobbit Village, a volcanic activity in Rotorua, and it's the fame of White Island recently, but I think we just need to keep a little distance from that. Here's luxury lodges in the central North Island, but they're scattered the length of the country and getting better and better. It works out very well for yachts to be able to place the owners in those for a few days to make some of the bigger journeys up and down the coast. And, there's some really fantastic places to stay. And there's, trout guides, and they catch some pretty impressive trout. We'll just keep rolling if we could, or otherwise I'll run a bit shy of time. So we move to the South Island now, of Marlborough Sounds. That's one of the southern gems that we talked about. It works very well in the peak summer months when it may be a bit busy for some in the north. You can do a lot more peaceful cruising down here. I mean, there's a quick, just stop on that slide a minute. So you've got to the right there with French Pass, Picton, the main sounds in that area, but it's also, you've got the opportunity to go out to the northwest to Abel Tasman National Park, and some fantastic experiences, hikes, and reasonably safe anchorages, as long as you don't get the wind coming from the north or northeast. But you can quickly get back into the sounds, into shelter. And as we roll through, you'll see some of the splendour, not that the rest of New Zealand doesn't have it, but a lot of whale watching in the area down in Kaikoura, and the sounds themselves and around the area. The sea life is prolific, and there's Abel Tasman National Park for you. It's a fantastic place. Kiwis love it just as much as the rest of the world. It's something that's all on everyone's bucket list. And then the vineyards they're fairly much up and down the country, but the real concentrations in the Marlborough area and the lower south around Queenstown. So we still have majestic mountains. So for anyone going cross country between joining and leaving the vessel, there's just endless things to do. We'll roll on a bit. So there's some of the high country lodges to the south. You can do helicopter into secluded hunting regions and fishing regions, or just exploration, nature experiences. It's just endless. It's imagination limited. Here again, doing that. So we're moving now into Fiordland, which to me is the real jewel of the crown. I mean, it's a national park, and you can see by the cruise ship that navigation in there is, it's pretty unlimited. The fjords just drop away so much that you can almost touch the cliffs in places, and you've got 30 meters of water immediately. But it just gives a brief look at the extent of the sounds, going right from Milford in the top all the way down to probably Dusky Sound, and the bottom is, well, certainly as far as I've been. Some of the, it's a little bit flattered to the bottom, but one thing that I've done time down in there, fishing and hunting and whatever, and the most amazing thing is down between breaks. If we just go back to that last slide, Breaksea Sound and Dusky Sound is, you've got some of the islands out. There's an island there called Resolution Island, and it was the first shipwreck in New Zealand. And then they built a boat that they out of what they could resurrect, and then a longboat, and took it all the way to Sydney and survived to tell the story. And there's still remnants of that. There's remnants of where Captain Cook berthed his Endeavour in one of the sounds there. You can still see some of the timber that they felled for walkways. And along in another region, there was an early conservationist that in the 1800s that had been protecting the kakapo, and you can still see his camp in this little island, and you just wonder how anyone would have done it. But when you tour there, it's all there undisturbed because so few people go there. So anyway, moving on to some of the images around So yeah, that's just a bit further up. That's in Milford Sound itself. And the peaks are just vertical, and after a rainstorm, it's most spectacular because everything's just awash. There's waterfalls in all directions, and it's just truly spectacular, as that image depicts.
Those US.
All right. So yeah, and then helicoptering into there is quite easy. There's some very experienced pilots who'll drop you right, drop your guests right to where you can get the boat in. The big thing is there that the owners and guests don't have to endure the passages down the coast. They can go to all the lodges and then experience the best of it without the pain. So that top shot shows when we were there how close you can get to the rocks. That's almost touching the flora, and we were still fishing away there. It's just spectacular. It's probably the one downside of that region is the scarcity of anchorages, and the fact that you do need a pilot on some of the larger yachts, but it's definitely worth it. So the walking in there is spectacular. It's another world. You go in there, and because it gets such heavy rainfall, you see different things. And then the fauna there, I mean, you see all that close up. It's, seals, penguins, kea, and lots of fish life. The place is alive. And for anyone that's got a taste for crayfish, that's the place to go. And so we'll just move on now. I'm just conscious of time, just to talk a little bit about refit and repair. So there's two main reasons that people come to New Zealand. And after what you've just seen, you'd be surprised to learn that some yachts come there for refit alone, as they do to Australia, and prefer the warmer climates. But you can see what they're missing out on. So I'll just quickly step through the key areas where refit can be undertaken. And there's just too much detail in that. But in the north at Whangarei, there's three significant facilities. There's a lot of, those boats are in there at the present under refit. A lot of resource up there, particularly because not only for as the commercial sector as well. So there's a lot of experience in engineering, and a lot of the liveaboard yachts go to Whangarei. They enjoy it. As the scale of the town is much smaller than Auckland, and it's a great place to get work done. And it's really become one of the capitals for the liveaboard repair annual fleet. They're a little bit diminished this year, but there's still a few come in, and work goes on. So we go down to Auckland, that most people know. So you got Orange have just put a new 820 ton travel lift in, which is up and running. I saw it running around testing, going through the systems today, and they pulled a boat out with their other travel lift at the moment. So that's just on commissioning. You have the 180 metre dry dock across the harbour there in Babcock's, which is good for a lot of repairs, although you can't get in there for extensive lengths of time just because there's such heavy bookings on that. But Auckland, of all places, has probably the most skilled tradespeople. That's where the real yachting industry started and still goes. You've got the companies like Southern Spars there and Doyle Sales, as well as all the central marine trades, and there's a real resource there. But you shouldn't underestimate the other regions as well. It's just a matter of find the place that suits you, and you'll be able to get the work done. So we move a bit further south to Tauranga. They've got a 320 ton travel lift down there, and they've just completed a new paint shed there, and we've been doing work down there. Well, we have been on all three sites, but we've been very impressed with what we've seen down there. It's really good caliber tradespeople coming through, a good work ethic, and I think of all the sites in terms of it always comes down to crew as well, where they like to be. And while there was a real preference for Auckland, I think there's a bit of a tide shift where it's people go where they want to go. If there's good surfing in the region, they like surfing, they'll go there, and all those places offer the work, so it's up to the options what the crew would enjoy. So just a few other areas. We've got the dry dock in the South Island at Lyttelton, which is really probably for emergency docking and short term, but it's still a facility available. To the north, we just right back to my last slide there. There's Bay of Islands Marina at the north is that's the entry point for a lot of yachts that you can clear customs at. And at the moment, that's where they're clearing and letting people quarantine for COVID, one of the key ports. So, and a secure dock there. So, and there's Nelson as well, that down in your Marlborough region, where you can get some work done as well as a slipway. But heavy commercial bookings on the two South Island plants. So that pretty much wraps it. It's up to the questions from there. Yeah, you know, and I'd revert back to my first comment. It's the experience in New Zealand and our wider region with the others. It's going to be the people. Like, you can go to these spectacular places, but it's the people. We had a yacht that went to out to Great Barrier Island, which is up from Auckland, and they took a bus tour. And when they were going along, the owners, it was quite a big bus because they had a big contingent, a fairly rickety bus, but it did the job. And they saw a rather strange-looking house, and the owner asked the bus driver who would live there, and the owner said, "Well, it's actually my house." So he said, "Would you like to come for a cup of tea?" So they all went in there, and it turned out to be the highlight of their experience, just because it was something unscheduled and seeing people for what they really are. And every yacht is going to get that sort of experience in their own way. And part of the fun is getting out there and being prepared to be excited, because there's plenty to be proud of. Anyway, that wraps it up for me. If there's any questions, I'm happy to cover them. And I can do that either by answering questions by email or do it here and now with a question and answer.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's I love the slides and learning about what is available in New Zealand. I think I'm the only Aussie that's never got there, so I'm going to have to change that when the travel restrictions are eased. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of the America's Cup action. You know, it's pretty dramatic, even if it's on screen. And we have got some questions rolling in. People want to know warts and all the information. We'll come back to the questions at the end of the session. And in the meantime, if you want to answer them online, please go ahead and do that as well. Okay. Now we're going to move on to Trenton Gay, who is a larger than life Aussie. I met Trenton down at his marina when they ran the Superyacht Rendezvous, and I had an awesome time. So Trenton, I know you've got a background with your family in the marine industry, and you've been involved with it for a long time. You're the CEO of the Gold Coast City Marina and Shipyard. Over to you. Tell us about super yachts and cruising and chartering in Australia.
Thank you, Susie, and hello to all. As Mark touched on before, the size of the region and our country, it's a lot of people don't realise how big Australia is as a destination. Australia itself is similar in size to mainland USA. It's 3,500 kilometres across and 4,000 north to south, so it covers a great area. The beauty of this for us and for visiting vessels is it provides year-round cruising with very diverse experiences throughout the passage. It is no problem for a boat when you come down to Australia, just to, even without leaving Australia, stay there for multiple seasons. A number of years is not a problem at all, and not repeat what you've done on previous parts of the trip. Because of the size of it and the geography, we've got there's two. It really does get broken down into two parts: the northern region, which is our winter playground, because we get the heat in the tropics. It is the tropics that we're up in the north, and then the southern region, which is our summer playground. Obviously, that's through May through to November is to the south, and April through to November. April across to November to April in the north. The beauty of when they're down there too, because it's not the Med, it's not the Caribbean. A lot of very quiet and safe anchorages. If you want to, it's more for the intrepid traveller and cruiser. When they come down, they're not going into a harbour to be seen. It's you're going there to actually enjoy the region and take in what Australia has to offer and the South Pacific. As David mentioned earlier, there's a lot of we've got world-class marina facilities and they're only improving. You've got many choices of port of clearance around the country, so it does give vessels a good opportunity to come in different parts of the passage. And for the owners and charterers that do come down, they've got an endless supply of what they can do. I'll just go back. I'll let you watch this video quickly, and then I'll continue on.
Life has drawn you here. Feel the warmth pulling you near. Breathe it in and let it fill your heart. It's like love. Cleanse your soul. Feel it in your veins. Breathe it in your lungs will stay. You've seen it all before, till you found something more. Breathe it in and let it fill your heart. It's like love, yeah. Cleanse your soul. Feel it in your veins. Breathe it in your lungs will stay.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's put together by Tourism Australia. It's a cracking piece. It shows a lot of the country, which is what what people are coming down for. One of the things too that it is, as Mark mentioned too, it's not just the on water; it's the on land. And there's a rich culture down here. We've got 40,000-year-old art galleries up in the Kimberleys in the Northern Territory that people can see. And do want to go down and enjoy shopping and dining, they can do that in the harbours like Sydney and the Gold Coast and Tasmania in Hobart. If you're going to move around the country, I'll start off in the summer destinations, which is as you're heading south, and as you're coming down, we've got Fraser Island, which is the largest sand island in the world, which is an amazing part of the waterway surrounding it. Moving down from there, you've got Brisbane and the Moreton Bay, which is a gem. It's right on our city of Brisbane, and we've got a barrier island sitting off has got an amazing surf on one side and fantastic boating on the inside and protected waterways. The Gold Coast is a fun destination. It's a great part of the world. We've got some of the best surfing beaches in the world, long sandy beaches. I think we've got 57 kilometres of beaches on the Gold Coast. The theme parks and whatnot are all there, but we also got we've got rainforests that are 30 minutes from the beach. So it's very diverse when they get down. Moving south, you get to Sydney, which is obviously a real destination, but there's waterways around north and south of Sydney which are equally spectacular. In Pittwater and Hawkesbury, but then further south to Jarvis and Batesman. So these are places that people can experience, but the inland experiences from there are just as equally spectacular. There's amazing produce and wines and terrain that they can see. But down to Victoria, so there's these are places that people haven't really thought about in the past. When they come to Australia, it's always been the main three. And Victoria is the dining and fashion hub of Australia. So they've got they pride themselves on their coffee culture. We all disagree with them, but it's you get down to there is it's a great port to visit, and there's a lot to do in there in Victoria itself. And across the strait from Victoria is Tasmania, and that is a real gem. Late season cruising down there is spectacular. The produce and the seafood is something to behold. They've got great wines, but it's just it's a little bit like New Zealand in that there's rugged terrain, and it is very, if you go onto the west coast of that, it's a real, you really risk it, but it's worth it. When the weather's there, it's a fantastic place to visit, and once people have seen, they're glad they've been there, and they talk about it, often. You're moving across the bottom of the country. We've got South Australia, and Kangaroo Island. Again, some of this is, you've got some of the best oysters in the world coming out of these areas, and wines and festivals and foods. I mean, Kangaroo Island has got some of the best produce, cheeses and meats you'll experience. That brings you around the bottom to the bottom end of Western Australia, which is down by Margaret River. As you come round, Margaret River is one of our premier wine regions, and then up to Mantle in Rottnest. Again, these are areas that have got a strong boating history, good facilities, and very easy for people to get in and out of. And as David mentioned, that side of the country is easy coming out of Asia. As you move north, you get into Geraldton, and there's some spectacular diving. The start of the diving, the reefs up there, crayfishing is Geraldton's greatest things. But then you move to Ningaloo Reef, which this is when you're starting to move into the winter season as you go north. And Ningaloo is one of those places where you can there'll be multiple whale sharks that you can jump in the water with and frolic for hours. As you come up north, and David touched on, mentioned before, you've got the Kimberleys, which is just something to behold. It's remote, it's tough, but it's worth the passage across into the Northern Territory, which is gaining a lot more popularity. There's facilities up there. There's people that can look after you and help you. The marina facilities are improving all the time. So and the culture from there is fantastic. And then you come back into Queensland in the top, which is the Great Barrier Reef. And being such a diverse reef, and it is, you can every day you can see something different. But one of the things that that people come down from all over the world to go marlin fishing there. So it's people have been doing that for 50 odd years. Flying in just to marlin fish. But one thing that we hear often about the Great Barrier Reef that is it's not in good condition. And just to let you know that that's not correct. It's a cyclone might go through and there'll be some damage, but the reef repairs itself, and it's been doing that for thousands of years. I was up there only 2 months ago, and the reef is in good condition. It's not like people there's a lot of rumors out there saying that it's dead, it's bleached and whatnot. That's not true. So do not worry, do not be concerned. The reef is in good order, and as I say, it repairs itself regularly and repeatedly. It'll always keep coming back, and the waterways are pristine. They are clear up there. So that's our cruising around the country, and that was a very quick move around. But one of the things that when the boats are down here, it's for the crew, and that's what we've got. We've got fantastic facilities to cater for the boats and the crew when they're here. The crew love it down here because you've got an easy go attitude with the Australians. We'll just have a go at it. We'll try and we always no's not a way of answering. We always will say yes. Let's get into it, and we really do make sure we look after the crew when they're here. One other thing, as David mentioned, we've got a few regions throughout the country which have got great facilities. Where we're located on the Gold Coast is a real hub. We've got the highest concentration of trades and facility and marina facilities there to cater for vessels. And one of our advantages too is we are the subtropics, so we can work on boats all year round, which is what the crew like it. The boats coming down there because it gives an opportunity to continuously get work done without having to halt for weather, hot or cold. But one of the beauties of being on the Gold Coast is they can get up in the morning and have a surf before they go to the yard. And when they finish in the yard, they can be up on the mountain and walk through the rainforest to a waterfall before they head home. and there's not many places in the world you can do that from within 20 minutes of a yard. Plus, the Gold Coast is a real playground for people and for the crew. They have a good time there. There's a lot of it's the entertainment. There's the nightlife. There's a lot of festivals and activities that go on there. So they come down, and it's a treat for the crew to be there and have fun. And we've got being in the South Pacific, we've got some advantages too with the regards to doing works down there to refit and repair. As I mentioned, we've got good facilities. We can handle boats up to a couple thousand, a few thousand ton. We've got a great array of trades with vast experiences. We've been building boats for a long time and doing a lot of and we've got something like 14,000 crew or Oz Australians are currently working on boats around the world. So there's a lot of experience at home and abroad. The exchange rate's great. It's $1.28 to the US dollar. We've got a stable and government and economy. We've got our trade rates are very competitive, and the laws that you operate under in Australia are very similar to in other parts of the world, like England and the like. So it's easy for people to understand what the laws are. They're not. There's nothing tricky going on with that. So it's from that side of it, when they come down to get works done, it makes life easy for them. They don't have to start guessing about what they're going to get as a result. It can be laid out easy up front, and they have fun with it. We've got a couple of good publications that have come out recently too. Last year, the Great Southern Route, and if you're interested in getting a copy of that online, we can let us know and we can organise that for you. And recently, they've just released, I think last week, David told me, a super yacht guide for Southeast Queensland. Okay, get my thing up there. So if you're interested in that, we've got some more detailed guide. We can, if you send that through, we can get that information through to you. And that, in a nutshell, in a short abbreviated version, that is Australia. When you do the loop around the country, anyone who comes down here, same as New Zealand. It's they're good people. We have a lot of fun working, and we enjoy when the visitors come down here and spend time with us, because they always want to come back. So thank you for that, and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Great. Thank you, Trent. You've done a great job of taking us around a big country.
The short version.
Yeah, short version. But this is what we've got to get out. We've got to get the message out that there's such great facilities, in Australia, New Zealand, and in the rest of Southeast Asia, and that's why we've got 3 webinars, and that they'll be covering the different areas. So thank you. We'll have we've got questions starting to roll in, which is great, and we'll cover those at the end. But first of all, I want to introduce Angela Pennyfather, who is a multicultural girl. She's Australian and Papua New Guinean, born in Papua New Guinea, and she speaks Neo-Melanesian languages. And this is where we're entering a new adventurous world out there with cruising in the Papua New Guinea region. So handing over to Angela. Thanks a lot.
Hi everyone, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you, Susie, for my introduction. I am going to give you a quick introduction of what to expect if you come and visit us in PNG. PNG is a nation of nations, I always say, because even though we are one country, we're made up of about 850 little countries within it. One thing that I want to get straight off the bat, we've had these amazing presentations from New Zealand and Australia, and one of the wonderful things about the region is that we all have something different to offer. Now, once you've finished doing all your refits and you've eaten all your oysters and you're ready to cruise on, come and see us in PNG. We offer something that's a little bit different to that, but equally unique. So I'm going to head straight into it, onto our first slide, Nick, which is to explain where Papua New Guinea is. I don't want to assume you all know where it is. So we are located due north of Australia on the island of New Guinea, which we share with Indonesia to our west. And so technically they're our closest neighbour. Australia and New Guinea are separated by about 6 nautical miles. Then we have Solomon Islands to the east and Micronesia to the north. So we are almost on the equator. Yeah, right slap bang, there it is. On our next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about what people, just a general overview, what people expect to see or what they know about it. PNG is the most linguistically diverse country on the planet. Why is that important? And this goes to cultural diversity. We have a population of 8 million people and 850 languages. And I'm not talking dialects, I'm talking languages. So if you think about how that translates to your yachting, it means that it doesn't matter what anchorage you're in today, you would be it would be unwise to assume that whatever the cultural norms or protocols are for this, today's village would be assumed for the next one. It really is a nation of nations. We're a former British colony, so that gives you an idea of governance, but it also means that most people, if they don't speak English, they understand English. We are on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so you will see that evidenced in the landscape, in volcanoes, in geothermal hot springs. You'll also, underwater, and that combined with our location geographically close to the equator means that we are part of the Coral Triangle and our marine life is exceptional. So we also considered a world-class diving mecca. For those people that are into birds, and that makes up 70% of Papua New Guinea's tourism, we have 38 of the 42 species of bird paradise. So if that's your thing, then please, by all means, come and see us. But I think the biggest thing about PNG that comes to people's minds is the iconic tribes. So some of these images on your screen at the moment, people think of the Huli Wigman, the guy with the yellow face, or the Balawan bride with the red face. That is really the point of difference, and this is what sets us apart from a lot of other cruising destinations. We are considered an anthropological mecca, and you will see that whether you stay on your vessel and you're just doing the outer atolls, or whether you decide to do something more adventurous and come inland for a couple of days. It is truly the last frontier. And I mention this because how this translates to your yachting experience is you can basically decide when people come to visit us, they can decide whether they would like an amazing experience at sea with just beautiful beaches and cruising grounds, or whether they'd like to try something a bit more adventurous and come into the mountains. But onwards to the next slide, please, Nick. Okay, so let's dive into the country a little bit closer. This is a map of the country that we've just highlighted the main cruising grounds. We have 3 main cruising grounds in my personal humble opinion. We have Milne Bay and Trobriand Islands, which is far east, and on your screen it's on the south. You can go there for exceptional diving. Coral diversity is as good as the Great Barrier Reef, and a lot of culture, but very much focused on marine. In the middle of the map there, you've got New Britain, New Ireland, slap bang in the middle of the Ring of Fire, lots of volcanic action. Again, big pelagics if you like diving, volcanoes, hiking, birds. And then if you go to the west, as you travel towards Indonesia, we have Manus, but the Sepik region, which is the river region. And I've also highlighted on the map the Highlands region on the main island. While we can't go there by boat, this is part of our onshore excursions, and I'll talk more about that towards the end of my slideshow. But in my experience, most people that come to the country, if they decide to take the trip inland to the Highlands, that's usually the highlight of their experience. Okay, so let's go to our next slides. The first thing that most captains ask me about when they come into Papua New Guinea is anchorages. we have no shortage of amazing anchorages. We have over 600 islands. We are still considered, how do I say this, the Wild West of the Pacific. We're not as heavily regulated as other countries, but we have this combination of the volcanoes, the main, the small atolls, and also just rugged coastline. So in this particular image, you can see Moti Vava 2, and she's 100 meters. She's anchored inside a dormant volcano. Our next image shows a small island. It's Endless Summer. Again, numerous islands like this around the country. Our very next image shows an anchorage which is not, again, very common, which is just a stern to beach anchorage somewhere where the sand just drops off to about 50 meters in the space of about 50 meters. And then our final slideshow, which I think is Suri. And this is a very common one, which is that a nice small bay on a rugged coastline, and umpteen of these. My point is there's lots of amazing anchorages. What they all have in common is that there's nobody else there. And that is one of our big sort of, that's something that we're very proud of. You can come and visit PNG, and you can be 99% sure that no other vessel is going to show up. I think in the last 10 years, I've been at 2 anchorages where vessels showed up, and that was because the owners had friends on other vessels and they wanted to rendezvous. But that is really one of the magic things, not just about Papua New Guinea, but about the Pacific in general. We are the place that you go to get away from it all. So there's that. Okay, what to do? Scuba diving is one of the main things that people show interest in. So I think next slide, we have, as I mentioned earlier, if you're into marine life, we have exceptional coral and marine life. But the other thing that we have is that we have historical diving as well. Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands and Micronesia, this whole region was the center of the Pacific theater in World War II. And you don't have to go too far to find that. So if you're into that, and a lot of our clients tend to be American owners, and so they have some kind of family tie or historical connection to the war, that's always a big talking point. And you don't have to go too far, like I said, to find it. Scuba diving, yes, but we can also find that on land. So it's not, this next slide shows a hike that we might do. People bring sometimes their metal detectors, and we might, here's a wonderful picture of us hiking 10 kilometers in search of a waterfall, actually, this particular waterfall. But along the way, we brought our metal detectors and we found all sorts of shrapnel and World War II relics. And that's something that a lot of people find a strong connection with. So yes, in addition to the anchorages, we have fantastic hikes, not just places where they don't have to be mountains. They can be as simple as beach hikes. This image here shows we have about 3 or 4 places that we stop in where we will offer the guests the option of hiking inland. This one particular image is about a 5K hike inland, where we build these bamboo rafts. We call it our rafting expedition. We build our own bamboo rafts with close guidance from the locals, and we make our rafts and then we paddle or drift downstream for an hour and a half. It's quite a zen experience. For those clients that are too old or they don't really want to hike in, we can also helicopter them in. So we have a lot of amazing, custom-made, raw activities. This is something that, this is the beauty of being in Papua New Guinea, is that, and what I said before is that it's for the adventurous. Okay, moving on. For the vessels that are looking for something different than just being at sea, we can also offer some river cruising. So if you're coming from Indonesia or into PNG and going towards Australia, Solomons, whatever, or if you're going the other way and you're traveling east to west, I always promote a stop in at the Sepik River. The Sepik River is, in Papua New Guinea, I always say there's 3 types of cultures. There's the people at the islands, then there's the people in the highlands, in the mountains, and then there's the river people. The river people we can see on the sea peak, and if you're into anthropology, then it just gives a bit more diversity, slower pace of life, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. Now, on the highlands, as I said before, and this is an onshore excursion, for those who are keen and would like to get and see the true sort of iconic tribes of Papua New Guinea, and I think many people, when they think of PNG, like I said, they think of the iconic tribes. I strongly recommend leaving the vessel for 2 or 3 nights, flying inland and seeing something that will really wow you. And that is the highlands of Papua New Guinea. These last 2 slides. What makes them so special is that they're not just, Papua New Guinea is a cultural mecca, as I said. These are tribes and cultures that are practicing these rituals, not just to perform for the guests, but they're doing it because they still practice them. It's real and it's raw. In my lifetime, I'm watching them vanish. And you have a chance in this country to see something really unique, which is its people. And that probably brings me to the last part of why I feel so passionate about my country, is that if you come to see Papua New Guinea, you might have an amazing dive experience. You might climb an amazing volcano. You might, see an amazing wreck or whatever it is. But the true beauty of the country, and this is something that Mark touched on in New Zealand and also Trent in Australia, is that it's the people. Now, these slides that you're looking at now, this particular one, it was just a couple of crew members waiting while I went hiking inland with the guests. The thing that I think you walk away from with this country, no matter what you come looking for, is humanity. And you see it everywhere. You don't see it at a cultural performance. You see it when you're trying to get your boat, your tender back to the boat. You see it here when you're sitting, waiting for your guests to return from a hike and you're interacting with children. And there's something incredibly humbling about that. And it's probably the thing that I'm proudest of, and the thing that I think, no matter who you are and no matter what you come looking for, it will be the thing that you walk away from and having affected you the most. So that's me done for PNG. I can get into the nuts and bolts of, what we can do, we can clear in, price of fuel, all that stuff. But we can do that in the Q&A. I just want to tell you how awesome my country is. So that's me. Good night. Thank you.
Well, Ange, I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily. Thank you very much for the presentation, and the photographs are amazing. I think you're responsible for taking some of those, or a lot of them, most of them. So we have to get more information out there. So I've got a question from Travis to you saying, it would be good to learn more about the warts and all challenges for large yachts, agriculture and quarantine, food, cyclone systems, winter storms in the higher latitudes, security in PNG. So I'm going to throw that one to you.
Okay. Hi, Travis. Yeah, the warts and all stuff. Look, where our weaknesses are is that we don't have the same infrastructure as Australia and New Zealand. I'll own that. It's a lot, people always say to me, I always say to captains, we can do anything you want, but we basically build the infrastructure. So we can get your provisions in, we can get whatever you need. The security, there's always the 2 main talking points in PNG and pre-planning are security and, 3 things: security, malaria, and cannibalism, believe it or not. Still, security is definitely a talking point, and I'm not going to be the person that tells you it isn't. For the most part, as a female, as a Papua New Guinean female, I would never put you in a situation that because I generally travel with the vessels, that I wouldn't go into myself. That being said, the ports, for example, if you're going to Port Moresby or you're going to Lae, which we try and avoid at all costs, it's an issue. And some people, for the most part, we operate under the radar, and we also work with high level clients want security. We work with high level operators who we're in those areas for less than 24 hours, and we have people on board who can mitigate that risk. But once we're out in the islands, to be honest with you, the crime problems and the security concerns that come with Papua New Guinea tend to be, I'm just making a general statement here, tend to be around the built up areas and the towns, but we don't see them a lot in the islands. The main issues that you have in the islands for the security or risk is getting an infected coral cut. And I'm not trying to play it down. So there's definitely always that. We have probably safe to say that the entire region since COVID, not just Papua New Guinea, but the entire Pacific region is a bit unstable since COVID. You know, economic growth has really been stifled. I have been in and out of the country a couple of times in the last few months, and we're seeing that, how that translates to us. I've been on a couple of vessels in the last 3 or 4 months, and how we're seeing that translate is just people are desperate to earn cash, but it hasn't translated to crime or anything untoward yet. Yeah, I still go there for what that's worth.
Thanks, Ange. That's great. Well, I'd like to ask Mark a question now from David Robinson, who asked, what is the feeling about super yachts attending the AC-36, and is there apparently a lot of cancellations? Do you foresee losing work as a result? Perhaps you can update us on that situation.
Well, there's a few people have asked similar questions. I'll try to cover a lot in one answer. We have had yachts turned away. The main reason being that is the country not allowing the owners in rather than the yachts themselves. Yachts can enter New Zealand for refit. The sensors that you saw up on the slip in Whangarei is one that's been in French Polynesia and has been allowed back in the country. And at the moment, that's probably a good option for a lot of yachts. We've had difficulty getting crew exchanges for the rotation. That has been a challenge. Once you're in the country, it's no problem for people with that have temporary visitor visas on the yachts. It's just getting across that border. But I believe there's probably about at least 10 yachts that turned away just because they became frustrated with coming into the country. And for a while, our process had been taking a long time, and I think it was the time taken to gain entry rather than the fact that they weren't allowed in. At that time, all yachts that had applied to come in for refit and repair had been accepted, but the owners of those yachts just chose to keep moving. The system in New Zealand has got a lot better. We're currently trying to get a couple of yachts in, and we've got a new form in on just Monday of this week, and that's a lot more. It's a lot more specific, but it's a lot easier and yacht friendly. It's been well designed, and you know, they're opening up to that. They've got a new, well, the same government re-elected, but with a stronger majority, and so they're not having to comply to the coalition. And they've been announcing that they're going to be looking towards focusing on, you know, luxury tourism for the country. So all the green shoots are there that things will improve. I don't think somebody had mentioned that it's likely that we wouldn't open until 2023, 24, but that's not the information we're hearing. You know, it will depend more so on the success of vaccines, and that's not that far away, as we all know. So things will change a lot then. So hopefully that covers it. You know, it's just the timing of the America's Cup for us wasn't good. If we had a little bit more time for the event, so if it was at the end of this year, we probably would have had the time to do something about it. But things just moved so fast as it did for the rest of the world that, you know, people have been making up the rules as they go. And in New Zealand, we've been relatively unaffected by the virus to date, and living relatively normal lives. So, you know, the business is operating very well, and you know, the yachting and marine industry is doing as well as it ever has. So you try and buy a trailer boat in New Zealand, the waiting list is 6 months right now. So things are not too bad. So anyway, sorry to be long-winded, but that probably covers a few aspects of it.
Mark, there was also a question from Colin Skyer, who said that you had talked about refit and repair. What about the new build industry in New Zealand?
The very large yacht builders is virtually dried up. You know, the likes of Ella Yachts and other large builders. You know, we had difficulty to compete because the owners travelling long distances against many other competing destinations. But in terms of slightly smaller yachts, luxury tenders, other aspects, it's really strong. You know, building yacht equipment, all the yacht equipment suppliers are doing very well, and things don't look to be slowing up from them. No problem for us to export that sort of equipment. You know, they commission it on site and then send it off. And probably to us, the whole yachting world is getting experts in from other countries. You know, we have trouble supporting expertise in their own territory, and luckily there's a lot of skills in New Zealand where we can cover that for, you know, the builders in Europe and North America and Asia. When the yachts come down and they can't service their equipment, we've been able to step up to the mark on that and just work remotely with the expertise. So, yeah, it's not just, it's the large yachts that have hurt in our region, but, you know, the refit is as strong as ever, and the smaller equipment builders as strong as ever. So, you know, just changing the market, I guess.
Thank you. There's a question from Joanne Drake, who, and it's a bit more complicated, so I'm going to give it to David. I'd like to hear about the different country allowances for super yacht, cruise and refit, crew, fly in, etc. This could be in the COVID landscape, please.
Extremely hard question. I mean, we did our rehearsal last Thursday, and then the following day, the rules changed in Australia, and Brisbane went into a 3-day lockdown. It's very hard to keep track of the COVID rules between the states of Australia, let alone internationally, because, you know, I heard a story that there was a 14-day extension of not accepting anyone into Indonesia, happened yesterday. It's changing every day, and I think the best way to do it is have your plan of where you go and talk to, in Australia's case, talk to me direct. In New Zealand's case, get in touch with New Zealand Marine, and find out what the landscape is that day. We've had every vessel that's wanted to come into Australia, we've had it approved. Some have been approved within 24 hours and others have taken weeks. And there's no rhyme or reason with it. It depends on who you're talking to and how far you need to escalate it within government to get the approvals that you need. So, yeah.
It is a moving landscape.
If we put out a paper today that said what the rules are in Australia, it would change within a week.
I think we're running out of time. I'm aware that we could go on with questions, and there's questions from Oscar, and there's a question from Lee saying, what's the best time of year to cruise in New Zealand? One of the things is we've got to get more information out. So I think there'll be a follow-up press release and stories that should be coming out from APSA on this. And Nigel, can I throw it open to you? Do you have anything that you would like to finish up with?
Yeah, hi Susie, thank you. I apologise. Can you hear me now, Susie?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, that's better. Okay, sorry. I was worried and paranoid about everybody having problems on this webinar, and it turned out to be me that had the problem. So a lot of people couldn't hear me at first, so I just wanted to jump in again and just say thank you to our panelists, to Trenton, to Angela, to Mark in New Zealand, to David, head of Superyacht Australia and Amex. Thank you very much. And also thank you to our members that have joined us, and also the industry friends, colleagues and visitors from around the world that have joined us tonight or today or in the morning or wherever you are. as I said before, if you couldn't hear me, APSA is the Asia Pacific Superyacht Association. We were set up with a primary aim as a regional association to promote our members and the region to the fullest. And we try and make our members as successful as possible. And we do this by showcasing the region and showcasing our members over all forms of media and during super yacht shows and events around the world. This is actually APSA's 10th anniversary, and in the last 10 years, we've seen a huge upswing in the business of yachting in Asia and the Asia Pacific, fueled mainly by yachts visiting from the West, but also a large swell of domestic demand. And due to us being unable to have a big birthday party, this is what we decided to do. We decided to hold a webinar to highlight the Asia Pacific region, let people know from all around the world about the cruising circuit, the fabulous cruising circuit over here. So as we've seen tonight, we've tried to make this a fairly simple webinar series with the concept of voyaging, covering 9 countries over 3 webinar episodes. And tonight we've heard from New Zealand, Australia and Papua New Guinea. Next week, we'll see, we'll move on up to Japan and talk about that, then over to Taiwan and Hong Kong. And then in 2 weeks, episode 3 will cruise to Singapore and Thailand and Indonesia. That will complete one of the many circuits of the Asia Pacific cruising area. And this is a very practical circuit that a yacht can do. So as you'll see throughout the webinar, the region has a massive amount to offer. Year-round cruising that's already in operation by many yachts. And of course, just these 9 countries, they offer a fraction of the cruising of the region. So in future, we're going to be adding more episodes to the APSA Grand Tour, including a South Pacific swing and perhaps a Indian Ocean adventure. Then onwards, we have a plan to build on the APSA webinar concept with episodes featuring super yacht brokerage, repair and refit, charter, and lots more, all focused squarely on the Asia Pacific region. So thank you again for joining us tonight. Happy birthday, APSA. I'm going to hand back to Susie to wrap this up. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Nigel, and thank you to the panelists. And for everyone that tuned in tonight, thank you. And don't forget, same time next week. And I needed to say, we have 110 APSA members, and these are some of our members, and we will be, it's not just the panelists that are here tonight. There's a lot to go. So if you go back to the website and look at the APSA guide, it'll tell you who the members are in the various regions. So please do call on our members. They provide good services. Thanks and good night.
Thank you.
Good morning or good day. Bye.